Okay, so now that we have all those definitions and all those values defined, let's go ahead and let's start graphing. Once you see an example, it makes everything a lot easier. Now, good news is graphing an ellipse is actually much easier than graphing a parabola because there's not going to be a lot of steps. So the first thing we need to do is figure out the center. Now, keep in mind, the center of an ellipse is h comma k. H is always with the x value, k is always with the y value, and it's always the opposite sign. So in this case, my center is going to be at positive 3, negative 1. So positive 3, negative 1. Which means that the center of my ellipse, if I start counting, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, then down 1. So here is the center of my ellipse. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to determine the orientation of the ellipse. Is it going to be horizontal or is it going to be vertical? And what you do is you look at the larger denominator. If the larger denominator is underneath the x value, what this tells me is that this is going to be a horizontal ellipse. Again, if the larger denominator is underneath the x value, it's going to be a horizontal ellipse. Now, if the larger denominator is underneath the y value, that's going to be a vertical ellipse. So all you have to do is look at the larger denominator. So because it's a horizontal ellipse, what that means is my major axis is going to go horizontal. So here's my major axis. And my minor axis is going to go vertical. So here is my minor axis. Now from there, we're going to need to get a couple points to graph the ellipse. The way we're going to do that is we're going to need to get our A value, our B value, and our C value. Now our A value is the square root of the larger denominator. So our A value is going to be the square root of 36, which is going to be 6. Our B value is the square root of the smaller denominator. Square root of 9 is 3. Your C value, which is the trickiest, is going to be the square root of a squared minus b squared, which in this case is going to be 6 squared minus 3 squared. You can actually just take the denominators. So square root of 36 minus 9, that is the square root of 27, which, nothing fancy, let's just make it a decimal, somewhere around 5.2. Now, using these three values, we're going to be able to graph our ellipse. Now, your A value tells you where your major vertices are, and your major vertices is always going to be along the major axis. So going from the center, because we have a horizontal ellipse, I'm going to go along my major axis 6 units out. So from my center, I'm going to count 6 to the left, 6 to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here is where one of my vertices are, or major vertices. 6 units to the right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's my other major vertices. Now your B value is going to tell you your minor vertices, and your minor vertices is always going to be along the minor axis. Some books call it minor vertices, some books call it co-vertices. So starting from the center, I'm going to count 3 units up and 3 units down. 1, 2, 3. Here is my co-vertices or minor vertices. 3 units down. 1, 2, 3. Here's my other co-vertices or minor vertices. Now from there, we could actually sketch our ellipse. So going from my co-vertices to my major vertices, all the way around, this is going to give me my oval or my ellipse. So there is one part of my ellipse, second part of my ellipse, third part of my ellipse, fourth part of my ellipse. Again, it's not going to be exactly perfect, but it's going to be good enough. Now the final thing we're going to need to do is figure out where my foci are going to be, both of my focuses. It's going to be C units away from the center along the major axis. So my major axis is horizontal. That means that my focus is going to be 5.2 units to the left and 5.2 units to the right along my major axis. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little bit over. There's one of my focus, or there's a focus. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A little bit more over. There is my other focus. So here's my ellipse, nice and easy. Now example number 2, same idea. Let's get our center, figure out the orientation, A, B, C value, and then we'll graph it. Center. h comma k. H is going to be a positive 6. K is going to be a negative 3. So 6 comma negative 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3. There's my center. Now big denominator is underneath the y value, which means that our ellipse is going to be vertical. So my major axis is going to go vertically. So major axis, minor axis is going to go horizontal. So here is my minor axis. A, square root of the bigger denominator. Square root of 16 is 4. B, square root of the smaller denominator. So square root of 9 is 3. C is the square root of a squared minus b squared, which is going to be the square root of 16 minus 9. That becomes square root of 7, which is approximately 2.65. Now these three values is going to tell us how to graph. So let's get the a value first. The a value is going to tell us where our major vertices are along the major axis. So my major vertices are 4 units up along the major axis and 4 units down. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my major vertices. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's my other major vertice. Minor vertices or co-vertices, it's going to be 3 units to the left and 3 units to the right. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my co-vertices. Let's graph our ellipse. This is going to look something like that. And finally, let's put where our focus is. So our focus is going to be 2.65 units along the major axis. So 1, 2, a little bit higher. There's one of my focus. 1, 2, a little bit lower. There is my other focus.